Hello folks, welcome back to another video and to day 2 of Vlogmas. So I'm going to keep this intro as short and sweet as possible because we've got a lot to get through. Today's video is going to be another Dressage Riders Online vlog, but it's going to feature Merlin and Eve. I'm filming this in November, by the way. This is the November Dressage Riders Online show. After our successful clinic last month, Merlin and I are going to step up a level to prelim, which is, I guess, the UK or the DRO version of US Canadian training level. It's like walk, trot, canter. The tests are a little bit more complicated, but I think he can manage just fine. And then Eve is going to be doing a walk trot test because we're getting better with our kind of canter transitions and connection and stuff. She's doing super well, but she still gets excited. So we're just working on relaxation and hopefully we'll be able to do a prelim test in February. So I'm gonna start with Merlin because he's been a little bit of a monkey. So I wanna get him out of the way and done and dusted first because I know he's gonna take more energy. And then I will pop in with Miss Eve. From me and this guy and Madame Eve, we hope that you enjoy. And Lord knows how this is gonna go. So I've got my 20 by 40 arena set up and now I'm just trying to figure out how I'm gonna set up my pivot. I'm gonna use these as a tripod to see like if I'll stay in frame. Because last month I was lucky enough to have my coach film for me, but today I don't have anyone. So we'll see how it goes. I don't have super high hopes. I don't think the quality is gonna be as high, but we're doing the best that we can with what we have. And bless my pivot because without this I wouldn't be able to do it at all. Okay, I think I found a distance that works. I've turned off auto zoom and I'm not actually allowed to do any editing for the test that I submit, but I will do my best to kind of crop in when we're kind of at this end just so that you can see a little bit better. But we're doing the best we can with what we've got. I've already said that, haven't I? So he's been a little bit of a monkey the last few rides, so we're just doing a little super quick 10-minute lunge. He's had a couple of bucks, so I'm glad I followed my instinct. Ready? Canter, canter, canter. Good boy. Up. And T-rot. Ready? Canter, canter. You got it. Good boy. And T-rot. I love doing transitions on the lunge because it's a super great way to make sure that they're checking in with you. Good boy. There, I think we're a little more chill now. So I figured that I would do a little bit of a voiceover over part of our warm-up just to show that although lunging helped, he was still quite energetic and fresh and frisky. So I walked him and then we started doing some trot and he just felt like he was looking at, poor thing, you can see here, I had no idea what he was looking at, and I came to find out that while I was warming up, which is when this happened, there was an ATV in the forest behind the property and the horses outside were running around, and I have a feeling that that is what he was spooking at in the last clip. But you can see here his trot is just kind of short and choppy because he's just like, I'm having to contain his energy. So this was when I had cantered already, but I was just practicing elements of the test and he just felt like he was trying to take over. He did this canter transition. I didn't ask for it, but I was like, whatever. We kept going and he felt like he was gonna go up. So I softened my hands and lo and behold, he went up. So I brought him back down to a walk and we just did like probably 5-10 minutes of just walking, bringing our energy levels back down and doing our best to just reach a certain level of zen before we started trying to do some work again. Now, I want to say that I'm including this footage in here because I want to be real and honest about the fact that, you know, Merlin does have his moments at this time of year, especially winter Merlin emerges, and he is very spicy and energetic in the arena because the ground outside is hard and frozen and the horses can't move around as much. And I'm just adding this disclaimer because the internet can be a very judgmental place and people think that they can know everything there is to know about a horse based on a 30-second clip. So this is not pain related, this is not saddle fit related, he just had his saddles refit. You know, if you spend 30 seconds looking at my channel, you can tell that I am all about the horse, putting the horse first, investigating every everything before simply labeling the horse as fresh. And in this case, that is what happened. You can see here, this is about maybe 10 minutes after he had his little moment, and he is so much more calm and relaxed. So with that disclaimer out of the way, we will now move on to his test, which was actually quite lovely. So back with another dressage voiceover, and I feel like I'm starting to get the hang of these now, so I don't have to do as many cuts. So the entrance to the test, from A to C, working trot, and then at C, turn right, and C to M, working trot. So that's all one movement, and he scored a 7, and the judge said active entry. M to B, working trot, B, circle right 20 meters, and then from B to F, working trot. So for this movement, he got a 7 again, and the judge said that he had active trot steps. He was feeling tenser than he normally is, but that's to be expected because he just had lots of energy, and he's just coming back into work after 10 days off, and it's cool. So yeah, Canadian winters bring out the energy in horses. And then this is quite a weird bit of the test. So AXC down the center line, and then at C turn left between C and H, working trot. So he got a 6.5 for that, and the judge said he was on right of the center line, which is true. At H, transition to medium walk, and then from E to X, and then X to B, we had to do like 2 half 10-meter circles. So here he went a little bit against the hand because he's never done this movement before, so we practiced it. But I'm gonna be completely honest and say that he doesn't look like he's a ticking time bomb, but he just felt like he's felt the last few times I've ridden him since I've brought him back into work, that he just has boundless energy. And he's always like this at this time of year, but this is the first time I've ridden him at this time of year. So next was free walk on a long rein between B, K, and A. And then at A, a transition to medium walk. So we're still working on our free walk. He didn't really do much, but somehow he got a 7. And the judge said some stretch. And then between A and F, he had to transition to working trot. And then F, M, B, C, all the way down the long side, working trot. So for this, he got a 7. And then at C, circle left 20 meters with a transition to working canter on the second half of the circle, and C to H, working canter. So for this, he got a 7, and the judge said fair shape circle, which I think is fair. And then from H to E, working canter with a circle at E, 20 meter, like a 20-meter canter circle. And then from E to K, working canter. And for this, he got a 7, and the judge said nice balance, which I remember riding this and feeling like he was feeling quite balanced and nice and less like a ticking time bomb. The transition to trot, he got a 6.5, and then included in this is a 20-meter circle at the trot at B, and those movements combined together, he got a 6.5. And the judge commented on the canter transition, saying that he was fluent into the trot. And then immediately after the circle, there was this really interesting kind of tight diagonal between B and H, change the rein and working trot. And then between H and C, working trot. So on such a big horse in a 20x40 arena, that is quite a tight turn, and I was proud of how he held his balance together. At C, kind of a similar thing, circle and then pick up the canter in the second half of the circle. So, sorry, for the previous movement, the change of rein, he got a 7, and the judge said active steps. And then for the transition into canter, he got a 7, and the judge said pleasing balance in the transition. For the circle and then cantering down to F, he got a 7, and the judge said fair shaped circle again. I feel like he feels a little less balanced this way, but he still looks quite decent for a 4.5-year-old horse who's just come out of 10 days of work, 10 days off. And then it was quite a quick downward transition from canter to trot at F and immediately down the long side. So we kind of overshot our turn. He got a 7 for that, fairly straight. And then for his halt, he got a 6.5. And the judge said square halt. What to say about that? He is a little bit sweaty, and that is because he was an absolute monkey. I haven't watched the test back. I have a feeling that it felt a lot worse than it looks. I put him on the lunge to start and he was fine, had a little buck and whatever. Got on and was warming him up, and he did his first ever proper buck under saddle at the canter. He's just feeling very good and has lots of energy, which is great, but when you're trying to film a dressage test on a deadline, it's not ideal. I got one in particular that I think is usable. He really did hold himself together quite well, and I'm definitely seeing a big difference between 4-year-old winter Merlin and 3-year-old winter Merlin. Even when I was riding him at this point last year, when the weather was chilly, he was still quite reasonable and good. People say 3-year-olds are very like doe-eyed and yes mommy type thing, and that the 4- and 5-year-olds are more rambunctious and full of themselves. Overall, I think considering this is his 3rd ride back and 4th time working overall since he had a week off. I think I tried starting it 5 or 6 times before we actually got through it all the way. You're so silly. You're a monkey, but I still love you. So the 2 that we got, I'm gonna take a look at them, and I'm sure that they don't look as bad as they felt. I'm sure as we work through the next 3 to 4 weeks, he'll just get better as he gets back into a program. So this is Editing Kaitlyn here to bring you Merlin's collective scores and his overall score. If my phone will open, there we go. So for his collective marks, for paces, freedom, and regularity thereof, he got a 7. For impulsion, desire to move forward, elasticity of steps, and suppleness of the back, he got a 6.5. And I think all this, like certain things that I think he would normally score higher on, he scored lower on just because of the level of tension that he was carrying, which is understandable. For submission, he got a 7. For position of the rider, I got a 7. And for effectiveness of the rider aids, I got a 6.5, or we got a 6.5. And all of those marks have a coefficient of 2, so they're doubled for the final score. For our final mark, he got a 68.60%. For the training level test, the second time we did it in our dressage test riding clinic, he got a 71 point something. So it's only 3% off, and it was a much different circumstance. So the fact that he still managed to get such a high score, considering the level of tension in his body, I'm very proud of him. And the judge had some really nice things to say. So they said the canter work shows nice promise. The walk could have a little more ground cover to be able to swing over the back and allow for a more flowing stride, which is kind of funny to me because typically his walk is one of his best gaits. He has a naturally very nice and swingy, beautiful walk. It's one of the things that I loved about him from the time he was born. But when he's tense, he wants to trot, and he tends to demonstrate that tension by having shorter, choppier strides. So that definitely showed in this test. You could tell the level of tension he was carrying based on the way that he was walking. Overall, I'm super, super happy with him. And I mentioned in my debrief on the day that I was feeling a little discouraged, and I think I was just because I was comparing too much to how he had been at the clinic and wasn't taking in a few different factors. So let's talk about it now, because this channel is all about reflection, self-reflection, and examining our mindset to hopefully be able to think better in the future. So there were a few things going on. He was just coming back after 10 days of work. It was also a cold and windy day. It had been lovely in the morning, and then of course once I went out to start riding, it got not necessarily colder, but the wind started picking up and the sides of the arena were flapping a little bit, which he's not used to really when I'm riding. He's used to it in the winter when I let him loose. He's never really experienced that under saddle, so that was a factor. I came to find out later that there was an ATV in the forest at the back of the property, which is technically private property, but anyways, that's another thing. And the horses outside, and there's paddocks on either side of the arena, the horses outside were reacting and I couldn't hear it, and because the sides are up, I now can't see it. So sometimes I need to remind myself that if he spooks at something and I don't know what it is, chances are it's something outside that he's hearing and reacting to, but not being able to see. Overall, in hindsight, side, I'm very, very proud of and pleased with him. Well, he's going on a winter break soon, so we're probably not going to be able to participate in Dressage Riders Online until likely April, maybe March, because he'll be coming back into work, I want to say early February. And obviously after he's been off for 6 weeks, it's going to take a little bit more time to get his level of fitness and schooling back up. We'll have the winter to let him strengthen up and reflect on what he's learned these past few months, because he hasn't had a break since August, but he just had 10 days off. But he hasn't had an extended break like that since last winter. So I'm looking forward to being able to give him that time to just rest and just be a horse, but also to think about the things that he's been learning, because I do find that he tends to come back from breaks even better than he was before. And yeah, I just find it really funny that there's evidently still mindset work that I have to do, because in the last Dressage Riders Online video, which was in September, after I rode the test, I felt like it was absolutely terrible. I almost didn't submit it, and he ended up winning his class. As I'm recording this right now, I don't know placings yet, so I'm not sure if we placed, but I have a feeling with a 68 we probably placed somewhere. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But now let's move on to Madame Eve's test. So now on to Madame Eve's test. I'm not going to show any of her warm-up because she was really good. She was a little tense on this day because of the wind and how cold it was, but she held herself together really well. So this is actually the same test that Merlin did in September. It's intro level test C. So from A to X, you enter at working trot, and then an X, you transition to medium walk. So for this, she got a 6.5. Judge said falling right to walk, which I agree with. X to C, medium walk. At C, track left, and then from C to H, medium walk. So for this, she got a 7, and the judge said active steps. Something she does struggle with when she's feeling a little hyper and tense is the desire to go up into the trot. As you can see here, she's not swinging in her step as much as she normally would, because I'm just trying to keep her at a walk rather than letting her trot. So for her trot transition and then XFA working trot, she got a 7. The judge said obedient transition. And then for her circle at A, 20 meter circle at A, and then from A to K working trot, she got a 7. The judge said fair shaped circle. So after the circle, you go down the long side and change rein from E to B, transitioning to the walk through X, doing 2 to 5 steps, and then going back up to trot. So for this, she got a 7. It said fluent transition. I was actually quite happy with her transitions there. At X, transition to working trot, turn left, BMC working trot. So that she got a 7. And the judge said obedient to turn. At C, we do a 20 meter circle, and then C to H working trot. For that, she got a 7. That's out of weird. For that, she got a 7, and the judge said fair shaped circle. And then at H, we transition to medium walk, do a medium walk from H to E. At E, do a halt for 4 seconds, and then E to K, proceed in medium walk. So for this movement, she got a 7. Sorry, she got a 6.5, and the judge said almost square. We're still working on our halts. This was one of the best ones she's done, but it's definitely still something that we are working on. Now this, I was kind of surprised that she only got a 6.5 because we do our free walk from KAFX and then X to H, between X and H, do a transition to medium walk. Now granted, this is not as swingy as she normally does her free walk, but she really loves her stretch, and I think to get a higher mark I probably just needed to push for a little bit more energy and swing. But you know, she got a 6.5 and it was a double coefficient, so for a total of 13, and the judge said fair stretch down. Between H and C, we do a medium walk, and then at C, a transition to working trot, and then working trot from C to B. So for this, she got a 7, and the judge said active steps. And then after that, from B to X, we do a half 10 meter circle, continuing in working trot to G, and then at G, a halts and salute. So for the first part, she got a 7, and the judge said needs more supple bend, and then for the halt, she got a 7, and the judge said obedient and balanced. So overall, I was very happy with her test considering the level of energy and tension that she had on the day. So editing Kaitlyn back here with Eve's collective scores. Now I didn't do a debrief on the day because, just to be honest, I was absolutely exhausted. I did a lot on that day, but to be honest, I wouldn't really have had much to say. She was a really good girl. She was a bit tense. God, my hair. But given the circumstances of the day with the wind and how cold it was, like, I was quite pleased with how she behaved. So for collective marks, there were 5. So for paces, she got a 7. For impulsion, she got a 6.5. For submission, she got a 7. For position of the rider, I got a 7 again. Same thing on Eve's test as with Merlin's for effectiveness of rider aids. We got a 6.5, but all of those have coefficients of 2. And the judge had some, like, a really lovely comment about her. So they said, a sweet, active horse with some promising moments. I'd now like to see a little more balance and suppleness on the circles, which is 100%. And that's what I find so helpful about these tests, is that you get such valuable feedback from the judges, and a lot of what they say either confirms what I already know, but it's nice to get it from an outside source, even outside of my coach or other people at the barn. And it also can give me some alternate wording or alternate ways of looking at things. When I did it in September, I found it really valuable, and I'm finding it equally valuable this time around. So for an overall score, Eve got a 68.04%. So score-wise, her and Merlin were only 0.56. My mental math, I think, is right. 0.1% apart. So both very consistent, both very good. And considering the circumstances of the day, I know I've said this a lot in this video so far, yeah, I couldn't be happier. So I'm really looking forward to getting the placings, and that is when I'm going to end this video. So no idea when that's going to be, but I will see you then. So it is many days later, and we got the results for the November Dressage Riders Online show. Both Merlin and Eve are going to be getting a ribbon because there were, I mean, to be fair, they were very small classes. There's only 2 in each division, but Merlin won and so did Eve. So I'm counting it. And very, very happy with both of them. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe down below, and leave a comment. I hope you're enjoying Vlogmas so far. I say that this is like the 2nd video, but there's lots of exciting things to come. And yeah, I will see you next time for some exciting simulated cross-country jumping with Madame Eve. Bye!